my name is Johanna Allik. Welcome to my channel, and you're watching part 1 on my figure skating story. So anyway, I've been getting this request to tell my figure skating story for years now, and it's happening now. So without further ado, let me just start by saying I'm born in Estonia, and I started skating when I was 5 years old. It was in 1999, so now you all know how old I am. And so the reason why I got into skating was because I had no idea what that sport was, but I was a very energetic and like a very creative kid. I was going to dance classes, music classes, singing lessons, pottery, handcraft, you name it. Like, I was doing so many things, and yet I still had energy. And I was also a very highly coordinated kid, so I started walking in a very early age. I think I was about 8-9 months when I was already walking. So because of that, I've always had very strong legs. I still have them, and I had them when I was a kid, even when I was a baby. So my parents, I think it was mostly my mother, she thought that why not put this kid into an ice rink. Ice rinks are cold. That means she's gonna have to move a lot, she's gonna spend a lot of energy, and well, maybe she's good at it, you know? Like, it's kind of like art mixed to sport. So they took me to my parents took me to a rink. I was 5 years old. They put me on skates, and rest is history, basically. Even on my first lesson, I do not remember anything about it, but I have videos, and even during my first lesson, I was already kind of like moving. I was kind of natural at it, so I wouldn't say it was like love at first sight. I was neutral. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to get back on the ice. But I really liked doing it, such as I like doing everything else, you know? So my first coach was this lady called Karin. She was, at the time, I think she was already over 60 years old, but she was like the nicest person ever. We did a lot of private lessons because I started at the end of the season, so I was behind everyone, so she was helping me with private lessons. And once the summer started, she asked me to join all her camps, which she did in Estonia. It was mostly like an off-ice camp where we just do basically figure skating off the ice. And all the girls that she had were, well, the youngest was 2 years older than me, but everyone else was like, they were older kids, like they were already like 8 and up, and I was 5. So that was like a interesting mix. I was already hanging out with people who are older than me. I don't remember much, but I know that it was like a lot of fun. But I know that I learned like many new things, and like pranks. I was like, oh my god, like, is this what you guys do? But like, I was just such a baby, and that was like so much fun. I was really enjoying, and it was going great. And as the season kicked in from fall, I started competing. I got last places in all the competitions. I could not care less. I really loved performing and just being on the ice, and like, I was a happy kid. And during my first season, this coach, Anna, formerly known as Anna Kondrashova, she came from the Soviet Union. She was a really, really, really good skater. She went to Worlds, and like, she was awesome. So she married an Estonian guy and decided to come to Estonia and start her own skating school. By then she was already with a different name, Anna Levandi. And I don't know if she called me up or my mom went to her, but anyway, my mother was like, let's see what this girl can do, so we'll change clubs. And basically that's when my childhood in like the normal sense ended, because well, trainings with Anna were much different. It was like, being honest, it was like Russian school. Like, we were very disciplined, and the trainings were not easy. Like, work started. No one cares that you're like 6 years old. You start working, and you have a goal. Like, you have to become a very good skater. I didn't mind it. I I was a kid, so of course I didn't mind it. I liked it, and I didn't really know anything else, so might as well, you know. I enjoyed it. I still had like some of my friends off the ice, but now like ice rink was my life. The people at the ice rink were my friends. Why I'm like this is because, well, they're your friends, but they're still your opponents, so they can't be like your trust people, you know. So I skated with Anna for a very long time. What I remember from that time was that as soon as I got to her club, I got a new program, and from there on I started winning every single competition. And by winning, I would say I was always on the podium, either first or second, mostly first, because I was just good, and I also trained really hard. And bear in mind, I was still like 6 years old. And once I went to school when I was 7, what my days were like, I started getting private skating lessons. I was training, I will probably, I'm not sure about this, but probably 5 days a week. But it was like off ice, ballet, dance, and they were not easy trainings. So I've been doing like abs since I was like 6 years old, but like strong abs, and we were like really, she was preparing us to like go to the Olympics. That was the mentality in the trainings when you're 7, when you have no clue what is Olympic Games, you're just like preparing for the Olympics. So our whole, like, we were in some ways like brainwashed, but in some ways that's like that's what you got to do if you're becoming a high-level athlete. So that was that. And then my summers at the time were we would go to camps. Summer is always like the high-level training. You're always on the go. You're never really at home. So during the summer we would go. First we did a camp in Otapa, in the little hills. So we did lots of off-ice. They ran 5 kilometers with like 4 minutes, which is pretty good for like a young kid. And we were just physically in such a good shape, and the whole environment was super motivating. We were so disciplined. We had like wake up at that time, morning run at that time, breakfast at that time. Everything was like set out. And so she, like, thanks to her camps, like my whole life is like laid out disciplined, you know. I know exactly what to do, and I think it's like a very good value that I got from it. So my first competition internationally was in Finland, if I'm not wrong, and I was 8. So that's pretty early. So yes, I started competing internationally from the age of 8, and I didn't stop until I stopped skating. So stopped competing. I'm still skating, but stopped competing. So that's also like pretty crazy. So very early on you had to like try to learn English and talk to other competitors and make friends in a different environment. So that was just like, as soon as I switched clubs, I really my normal childhood was like over, which I don't regret, but it's pretty like crazy to think like your only friends are the people who are basically your opponents, who you're competing against. So it's like you learn pretty early that you can't really trust anyone, and you kind of have to, if you want to be better than someone, you have to do it in secret and not show it. And then like if they call you out on it, you're like, whatever, like, you know, I wasn't doing anything. And from like the age of 10, I guess, from the age of 10 we started getting weighed, and usually it was that was always during the camps, and it was always before breakfast. We would all go on weights and on scales, and our coach would set out like a plan, like either you need to gain or you need to lose. Normally it's that you have to lose. So from there on, like you're like you're a child, but you're already like thinking like, oh, like I guess I shouldn't like drink water today because then I'll be lighter. Like that's another topic that I want to talk about. But it was very strict. But our coach Anna, she was like our mother, like actually like a Mother Teresa. but like a very strict mom. She would like yell, and it was fine. Like, you understand pretty early that that's what's normal. Like, we didn't know it could be anyhow else. So she really made us like fight for, you know, like you understood that for if you need results, you need to work hard. You're gonna be yelled at. You're gonna be called fat. Doesn't matter. You're still like, if you have a goal, nothing else matters. And so yeah, I think that's like I would say that's like part one. This up to like age of 10, 11, because that's like what was like my childhood, and like the story on how I got into skating, and how I was living back then. So I would say it's like a pretty basic figure skater version. Usually get into skating rather early, and you start training right away. So yeah, like by the end of it, when it was skating was all I was doing. Don't get me wrong, I was in school, but school was like, it was mandatory, but figure skating was number one. I would train before school. I would sometimes train during school. I would always train after school. Sometimes during the lunch break, my mom would take me to a ballet class. And so everything started like piling up. I had so many like things to do, but I didn't feel bad about it. It was fun. Like, I liked, and very results driven. So whenever I worked, I always saw results. So that was like what I knew. Like, I knew that if I work hard, I would get results. And that was, I guess, the first and one of the most important lessons that I learned from the early ages of my skating career. So I think that's about it. Yeah. For my second part, I'm gonna talk about my puberty and the years that came after like the age of 12. And I'm gonna talk about, but I'm just gonna give you like the story, and then part 3 will be about my switch to ice dance, and then part 4 I'm gonna do the last part, which I think was like the nicest part. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting, at least to some extent, and I hope you're gonna like follow up on the next stories, because I think from here on it's gonna get more interesting and interesting. So stay tuned. I guess it's like mandatory to say, like, please subscribe, so it goes more out there, and moms who have their little kids can think about if they want to put their child into skating or not. So yeah, thank you, and bye.
Next we have